Okay, this is a tutorial for using FormCraft, which is a premium WordPress plugin. It's one of my favorites, and I'm going to go over most of the basic stuff. It'll do a lot more than what I'm going to show you today, but it will also do things by using paid add-ons. So if you wanted to customize it even further than its own capabilities, you can throw a little more money at it, and then buy those add-ons and enhance this plugin considerably. I'm using my login here. You'll use your own, but we're at the login screen for WordPress. We're brought to the back end here to the WordPress dashboard, and I'm going to click on FormCraft over here on the left. And it loads the FormCraft interface or dashboard, however you want to look at it. And I've already got a form here, and I kind of give you a real brief look at that. It's one that's already been created. I'll click on that, and it shows you all these different forms, or all these different fields within the form. And you can click on any of these, and it'll have a flyout that comes out here and tells you the field number and all of the different things that apply to this field and how it was created. There's the other one. Here's one for email, one for comments. Click out in this background area and they all go away. So what I'm going to do now is create a new form just for the sake of this tutorial. It'll be pretty much unimportant as to the logic behind this form. I'm just going to create some things and use the different fields and options that come with this particular plugin. So I'm going to go back to Dashboard. I want to click on New Form. When I click on New Form, I'm going to create a name for this form, and this is going to be Tutorial. And I'll delete this later after I've finished recording this tutorial. So by default it's 420 pixels wide, and it's ready for you to add a field. Now in responsive design I want it to be fairly fluid. There will be times when you want it to be constrained to a particular width, say for instance 420 pixels, but I'm going to leave it at that. Later on, when I get ready to place the shortcode into a web page, I'll probably come back in and change this out to say 100% rather than 420 pixels. So let's start by adding new fields. So come over here to the right and you'll see this menu, and I want to put a one-line input, and instead of name I kind of like separating first name and last name, and I'll tell you why. It's so that when we do the autoresponders we can say dear first name, or hello first name, or hi first name, rather than hi first name last name. It just makes it a little more personal. So I'm going to come in here and change the label from from name to first name, like that. And I like using the sub label where it says your full name here. By default I'm going to say required, because I want that to be a required field. Because without that, then when I do the autoresponders, I won't have a field to pull from if they choose to leave it blank. So that's going to be important. And then I'll come down here to required field and select that. And that's going to put that little asterisk there and make that a required field. They cannot leave this form field blank if that is selected down here. You'll notice a lot of other things that are on this particular flyout. You can include instructions. You can do an input mask. There's a question mark next to some of these fields that kind of tell you what that is all about. That's not necessary for this particular tutorial, but those are options. If you're going to mask it for a zip code or a phone number or social security number, something like that, then that's the format that it would be in. You can use icons to place next to each one of these fields. By selecting from this icon library, I'm going to say none on this. There's no need to. So I'm going to click on this one more time to bring that back up. You can have minimum amount of characters. Let's say, if somebody's name is more than 2 characters, you can say minimum 2 characters, max of 24 characters or whatever. I wouldn't ever use that on first name, but that is important when you're trying to hold someone's hand, in that if they're filling out a zip code field, for instance, you may want to say it has to be a minimum of so many characters. If you want it to have the 4-digit extension to the zip code, then you would definitely say you want it to be a minimum of 10 characters, or 11 actually, because you have the hyphen in there. But anyway, we're going to skip that for now. I'm going to come back over here and click on one-line input again, and I'm going to put in last name. And I want that to be a required field as well. Click on this down here. And then let me see. I also want their email address. First name, last name, and email address are really important when you think about the fact that you want to make those required fields. Because without an email address, you have no way to send a reply back. And I'm going to check all 3 of these: send autoresponder, set as reply to address, and required field. And I noticed that I'd missed putting required here. This is just a personal preference of mine. I like putting that sub-label in there as required, so that people know when they glance at this that they have to put that in there, and they don't waste their time trying to fill out a form and they get all the way at the bottom, hit submit, and then find out, oh, I guess those were all required fields. So I go ahead and label those. Let's go on down the list here. So we could have a text area, like if you want somebody to be able to leave comments, you can add that there. If you click on this, then you can customize that, and you can say, comments or questions. Just customize it however you like. And this doesn't have to have anything at all for a sub-label if you don't want to. It doesn't have to be required if you don't want to. You could put instructions on there as to what it is you're expecting from them for that particular field. You could show a character count if you thought that was necessary. And number of rows, I always use 5. I mean, you can put 10 in there if you want, or 20. But aesthetically, 5 seems to work just fine. And if they continue typing, it just ends up scrolling that particular field. Checkbox, if you have options for them to check, click on checkbox. By default, it has favorite fruits. Pick one: apple, orange, watermelon. The difference in a checkbox and a radio button is that checkboxes allow you to have multiple choices. I can click all 3 of those. But if you wanted them to have to choose from one of those 3, then you would come down here and you would deselect allow multiple selections, and you'll notice that those checkboxes turn into radio buttons. So now they can either pick apple, orange, or watermelon. They can't pick all 3. And again, you can change the label, your options. If you're not dealing with apple, oranges, and watermelons, you can come in here and change those out. Just put each option on its own line. So you could type in, line 1, line 2, line 3 is your options. And if that's a required field, again, you can do that. And if you want them to be able to select more than one option, then again, you could select this and it turns it into checkboxes. Okay, that's that field. Come on down. Sometimes you need a drop down. A drop down is used a lot of times in predefined multiple choice selections, or let's say you're going to offer a color, for instance. We hit this drop down, and in this one, by default, it's a language drop down. So if they can select from English, French, or Spanish. But if you wanted it to be color, for instance, You could have red, white, blue, and make it a required. And then that way, when they select on this, they can pick any one of those three that you've added. You'll notice down here that it has autofill. That's for like countries, U.S. states, nationalities, languages, day of the week, months, etc. When you select that, it will delete whatever you put up here custom and add like U.S. states, like that. So that's that field. That's how the drop downs work. Date picker, that's kind of cool. With the date picker, you can put this on your form, so if you wanted a customer to be able to pick a date when they were requesting something to be received or sent or whatever, then you can click on this and you can say what days are allowed. So if you weren't allowing for something to be shipped on a Saturday or Sunday, you could pick Saturday and Sunday as days, or excuse me, as days allowed. You'd pick Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and deselect Sunday. So days allowed are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but not Sunday or Saturday. And again, these same fields apply. I believe this particular plugin was written by a developer outside the US, as you can see by the format of the date. Here in the United States, we do month, month, day, day, year, year, not day, day, month, month, year, year. So you want to make sure you select that, or it's going to mess with people's minds. And so anyway, and then you could have it in a lot of different languages as well, but we'll stick with English. And again, you can change the label. It could be preferred date or shipping date, or whatever you want. Shipping date, and just get rid. You don't have to have anything in that sub label, by the way. Okay, so everything you'll notice is 100% width as far as each field. If you wanted to have two fields side by side, like state and zip, I'll show you how to do that. So let's say you want to have state, or let's take that out. I didn't mean to put that in. So right here's a trash can. I can get rid of that. I'm going to have one line input. It's going to be state, and I want to make it 50% because it's going to be sharing this row with another field. Then I'm going to add in another one. I want to say that this is zip. And it's also going to be 50% on the column width. I'm going to come back in here and take that sub label out. Okay, so I've added in state and zip, for instance. Already got the date picker. Custom text is like if you want to add text in there for the user to be able to read. If you need to explain something on a particular section of your form so that they will better understand the usage of the form. If you're needing to hold someone's hand, which is likely the case, then you could click on custom text and then add that text here. And then it gives you a toolbar here, so you can do some custom formatting to that text as well. You can change the font, the background color, all of that jazz. You can even put an image in there if an image is required. Your alignment, all of that can be done right there. I'm just going to leave that the way it is. And then I'm going to skip the submit button because that goes at the very bottom. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and put it in there just so I can show you how you can rearrange things. But then they have more fields. They have CAPTCHA, which is a verification process to separate humans from bots. The cool thing about this particular form is that you do not have to have CAPTCHA. It's not required. It's impervious to any kind of spam, other than the fact that people can actually fill it out and send in information to you that's totally unrelated to why you had the form created to begin with. But what I mean is it won't harvest this form and then use it repeatedly as a bot would. So there's no need to have a CAPTCHA. Password is just that. If you want to add a password in on a form so that they have to fill that in, if you're requesting someone to create a password for themselves before they submit their form data. File upload, that's pretty cool. If you want somebody to fill out this form and upload a JPEG or a PDF or something like that, you can add this button to it. Here are the allowed extensions, JPEG, PNG, and GIF or GIF. But you can also add in PDF or AI or CDR, whatever it is you want to put in there. I wouldn't go overboard, just put the ones in that you want to allow for the sake of doing business. You can change the label from file upload to whatever. And then you can also put in a maximum file size. By default, the server's set up with each account to allow 2 meg of upload, so it's not much. That value can be changed, but you really need to justify it because it can really take up a lot of server resources to bump that up from 2 meg to something else. So it's basically for PDF, some small file size under 2 meg. And then slider. You may want to use that for particular things. So in this, it can be a range selector, show scale, and then when they're pulling this across, they can use it as a visual selector to slide things across from and select a value. So let's say it's range and show scale. So like if they're picking something from 10 to 100, you could use it for that. I have not had a need to use the slider, but I'm going to leave it there anyway. And then a time picker, which is basically just like the date selector, date picker. So it can be set for 24 hours or 12 hour, or maximum, right here. You can change the label and sublabel. The hide AM, PM, required field, and all that is all optional. And this hour step is like increments. So if you wanted them to be able to select in 1 hour increments, just change that value there. You can even do a minute step. So if it's like you wanted to do things in 15-minute increments, you could do 15 here. And then people can come in and actually put in the hours and minutes and whether it's AM or PM to be able to select a time. Survey, if you're taking a survey and you want people to be able to do rank ratings, like how many thumbs up or thumbs down or star rating or a choice matrix, select any of those there. Payments, this will not work unless you do an add-on, which add-ons are up here. There's no add-ons installed, but you can see that there's a wide variety of things that you can purchase. If you choose to purchase these and implement them, let me know. I'll be more than happy to get that set up for you and pointed in the right direction. Now, that's pretty much all the fields and their capabilities as far as the form goes. I do want to move this submit form down to the bottom, and that's why I saved this for last, because I wanted to let you know that when you have this hand icon, that means that you can drag this and put it anywhere you want. So if I wanted to move this up, if I wanted to move this above the slider, if I wanted to move zip over to state or vice versa, you can move things around however you like. So it's just drag and drop. Now, like I said before, since your design is responsive, I'm going to do 100% and leave that at that. So that means that when you place the shortcode on the page that's going to be holding this particular form, you can make sure that it fills the width of whatever container you're putting it in. So at this point in time, I would say it'd be wise to save the form. And then once we've saved it, then you can come up here to options, which is the second one over from dashboard there. And here is where you will set it all up to go to the right email addresses for who it's being sent from, name, so on and so forth. I leave all of this by default the way it is. There's no need for me to ever use any of these. Maybe if I have a client that wants a particular thing, like if they want to disable a form after it reaches so many submissions, like if they're doing a contest and they said the first 500 entries, then I could put 500 in this box as a value, and then once it allowed 500 submissions, then it would kill it and you wouldn't be able to submit any more data. Most of this is going to be self-explanatory, but anyway, I'm going to go over here to email because that's the next most important thing after you've created the form itself. You want to put in your name, and that can be your company name, or it can be your personal name, and you can put in your web address here. And if you want to run a test, you can type in your web address and then simply hit return or enter on your keyboard, and it'll send you a test message that says that it worked. WP mail seems to work fine. In rare occasions, rare instances, we've learned that sometimes we have to go with the SMTP method because if a server or if somebody's using Gmail or something different than something hosted with their actual domain name, then we have to play around with that a little bit. Email notifications, whoever you want these sent to, and you can separate this with a comma. So you can put in your email address and then enter a comma and then add in another one. Like that. And that will send an email to both of these accounts. And if you mouse over this question mark, it'll essentially tell you that. And you don't need a space, just a comma. And then you can make the form name, I named it tutorial, so it uses this bracketed information here that says form name as a title to the email. So it's going to come across in the subject line. When someone fills this form out and it's sent to your email address, then it will say tutorial hyphen new form submission. And then here, this is the email that comes to you. So it really doesn't matter what's in here. I mean, you could say, yo, Kobe, if you wanted it to be personalized, and every time you submit or someone submits this form, you get a response back from the server, and it's addressed to your email address that you put up here, but it's personalized by saying, yo, Kobe. So this is only what you'll see, or whoever's in this send emails to field up here above. So you can just leave it blank. You don't even have to have anything there. It doesn't have to have a greeting because it's coming to you and you're going to know by virtue of this form name and where it says new form submission. And again, you can change that out too if you wanted it to be new, you know, like tutorial hyphen Blue Fork Design Consulting, whatever. And then if you want attachments to be uploaded with the email, then you can click on this as well. And this is another feature, use forms multi-column layout in email body. If you wanted it laid out in the return email where state was here and zip was there, then you could click on that. Otherwise, if it doesn't matter, then just let it send it to you in the format that it's going to send it to you in. Then the last but not least is the email responders. So you might want to put your name here, not your customer or not your client, your corporate name, but your personal name, and then your email address, and then you can change this subject line. This is what the visitor is going to get as an autoresponder. And so you'll have to go in here because you remember when I first started the tutorial that in the beginning, when you select one line input, it's going to by default put name, and it's looking for your full name. And again, I like splitting that out so that you can personalize this. So I'm going to type in first name, because that's how we set up the form field. So now you can completely customize this. You can delete this if you want, because otherwise, if you don't, it's just basically going to regurgitate whatever that user filled out. It's kind of nice to leave in there, because then when they get their autoresponder, they go, oh yeah, well, wait a minute, I put in the wrong phone number or whatever, and they can go back and correct it. And then this is your closing, so that could be, you know, Blue Fork Design and Consulting, whatever, and you can put, you know, hit a return, and you can put in your address, phone number, whatever else you want to put in there. You can also customize this by highlighting whatever text there is and using the toolbar to add H1 through H4 tags, paragraph tag, bold, italics, underline, whatever. Your alignment, all of that's doable from the screen. Once you're done and you're happy with this, then click on this X right here and hit Save Form again right up here, and you're done with that. Now, to add this to a page, come over here and click Embed. Come down here to Shortcode. Highlight this shortcode. Come up here to Pages and say Add New. And I'm going to call this Page Tutorial. And I'm going to say use the Divi Builder, use Visual Builder. Nice thing about video tutorials is that if it goes too fast, you can pause it. If you forget after you've watched it, you can go replay it as many times as you want. So I'm going to go down here to start building. And I'm just going to click one row, and I'm going to click on code, because this is a short code and I want to place it as code. So I'm going to click that there and click this checkbox here and let that do its thing, and it'll eventually show you the form that we just created. It's all hunky-dory. Come down here to these three dots, hit publish, and you're ready to go. That's it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help you.